Let me move away from the commercial opportunity to the defense side of the opportunity. And of course, the Indian government has been focused on self-reliance through the Atmanirbhar Bharat program. And that is the attempt to try and get more manufacturing done here in India. Of course, at the DEF Expo, we've seen Boeing articulate its plans for India. But if you can give us an update on where things currently stand as far as the defense aspiration is concerned and future investments here as well.
Well, we support Prime Minister Modi's vision for India, made in India, for India and for the world. And at this stage, as I'm speaking to you, there are 154 Boeing commercial aircraft in operation, but we've delivered 22 Apache helicopters to India, 15 Chinook helicopters, 12 P-8 Poseidon aircraft and 11 C-17s. And also 777s and 737s for the VIP fleet. Those platforms require sustainment and support, and we've invested in support of those. We also have other platforms which we have offered and are offering to the Indian government, including our Block 3 Super Hornets, and we have autonomous vehicles and aircraft and some weapon systems which we will also be offering to the Indian government. I mean, you've got the third largest defence force in the world, and quite rightly the decisions that are made by India are entirely a matter for India itself, but we're confident in what we've got to offer. The joint venture that we have with the Tata Group at Hyderabad is an example of what I think the future is going to be, with Boeing co-investing with Indian companies in the development of products for India and, as I say, for the rest of the world. So we have built nearly 200 Apache helicopter fuselages in Hyderabad. In fact, the first one was delivered in January to the Indian Army, or has been produced for the Indian Army, which is an illustrator of what we're doing. We invested $100 million US in developing the technology necessary there to build vertical fins for 737s, and we're doing nose cones and tail cones for Chinook helicopters. We're doing tail cones for P-8s. This is the kind of co-investment that's important for not just us and our business strategy, but also for India itself, and that's a win-win. And in fact, I should also say, of course, that we've spent $200 million US on a 43-acre site to develop the Boeing India Engineering and Technology Centre, which is an extraordinary capability that will house some 4,000 Indian engineers. So we're very pleased.
You know, just on the defence side, because you spoke about that joint venture that you have with the Tatas, but at the Defence Expo, Boeing had also spoken about the need to focus much more on localization and, in turn, further partnerships here in India. Is there anything on the anvil by way of more partnerships, more joint ventures here on the defence side in India? And about the export opportunity that you spoke of, one, of course, is catering to domestic demand, but the export opportunity of making in India for the world. What are the targets that you have in mind?
Well, we will be and are exploring further opportunities for co-development in India that meet the needs of India and of Boeing. I can't be too specific about them at the moment, for reasons I hope you would appreciate. We currently have about $1 billion US in exports from India that we have produced here, and we anticipate that that is going to grow. It's going to grow firstly because as a company we believe in India and supporting India itself. We also know that that's an important part of the decision-making process the Indian government quite rightly makes when it's making decisions about procurement, what it's going to buy. And we also know that as a consequence of the geopolitical tensions that we have in the world, that nations are increasing their investment in defence, which means that us and companies like us that produce and provide defence platforms and services, that we will be selling more of them to these countries, and that means that more will of what we do make in India is going to be exported to the rest of the world. So in that sense, that's a good story for India and a good story for Boeing.
You talked about how Boeing intends to focus much more emphatically on sustainable aviation, and that's what I wanted to pick up on. What do you expect we can see in terms of fresh developments over the next few years on that front? Given the current global economic context, specifically high inflation, high oil prices, and all of that impacts, of course, the growth of the sector. So, on sustainability linked to the changes and the headwinds that we're seeing as far as the economic climate is concerned, what can we expect?
Well, what's extraordinarily important, Shireen, is that all of us, it doesn't matter what you do, where you live, what industry you're in, we have to cater for the needs of our generation whilst protecting the capacity of the next and subsequent generations to cater for theirs. We have to be sustainable. Aviation is 2.6% of global greenhouse gas emissions, about 12% of that in the transport sector. So for Boeing, at every part of what we do, in our manufacturing plants, our assembly facilities, the management of waste, water, energy, recycling, all of those things to reduce our footprint to zero, and our ambition is to get to net zero in aviation by 2050. So what you're seeing at the moment is, and I mentioned earlier, fleet renewals by airline carriers, because the quickest way to reduce your greenhouse gas footprint is to purchase new aircraft. So a 737 MAX 8, for example, will reduce your footprint by about 25%, a 787 by about 20%. And then sustainable aviation fuels is certainly in the near, medium and long term, for long haul especially, is the solution for decarbonising. So we're investing very heavily in various parts of various facilities around the world and partnering with other companies in the development of and production of sustainable aviation fuels, or SAF as it is called. In the near term, that is the quickest way, apart from fleet renewal, to get to zero emissions. And we're also working on electrification, which will certainly come in the near term for smaller aircraft on shorter flights, turboprops, and of course we're working on hydrogen, but hydrogen is not going to be the solution for commercial aviation in the near or medium term. In fact, The Economist last year described hydrogen for medium and long haul flights as a techno fantasy for the next few decades. But we're working on all three of those ways of decarbonising aviation, as well as the complete life cycle of aircraft themselves. So it informs everything that we do, and we have an immense responsibility to decarbonise as quickly as we can. Our ambition is to be at net zero by 2050. That's the commitment of the entire aviation industry, and certainly of Boeing.
Mr. Nelson, let me end by asking you about what we can expect as far as 2023 goes for Boeing. 2022 was a turnaround year of sorts, given the difficulties of the past, especially with the 737 MAX. What should we expect this year, specifically as far as certification is concerned, of some of the newer variants?
Well, the decision to the certification of the aircraft, the 737-7, the 737-10 and other platforms, is entirely a matter for the regulators themselves. We're working very closely with the regulators in getting the aircraft certified as soon as they safely and practicably and confidently can. I'd also say on the financial front, for those who follow our financial performance, last year we were back to $66.6 billion in revenue and free cash flow of $3.1 billion. We advised our investor conference in November last year that we expect in 2025, 2026 to have about $100 billion in revenue and an operating margin of about 10% and $10 billion in free cash flow. As I said earlier, we had 800 orders last year. we are very confident that we're very much on the right track, and we have significant growth ahead of us. But we still have, we know that we still have a lot of hard work to do, and we're making sure that we earn the confidence of our customers and the travelling public.
Ben Nelson, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18 and taking us through Boeing's plans for India specifically. We look forward to seeing you back here soon, but thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Shireen, and I will be back.
Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up the CNBC-TV18 special. We'll take a quick break. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. We're back in a minute with more.